My name is Willy Bolander. I study influence, persuasion, and leadership in selling and sales management, and I teach people how to sell. In this podcast, we'll talk to some of the world's top sales leaders and see what we can learn from them. Welcome to the Sales Lab. Many of you remember a few weeks ago, John Crossman was the guest on the Sales Lab podcast. And with his company, Crossman Career Builders, he is also the sponsor of today's episode. Specifically, we want you guys to go check out this book, Career Killers and Career Builders, the book every millennial needs to read. I've also read it. A couple really great things I'd like to mention about this. One, it's not like an academic textbook, right? I sometimes describe textbooks as books that are written to be bought but not read. That's not what this book is. This book is meant to be read. It's a very easy read. Let's see, 120, 130 something pages it looks like. I'll tell you one of the stories I love in here is, I'll just read it to you. Page 71. Years ago, a young man came to see me and was deciding whether to attend graduate school at the University of Florida. I met with him for a little while, but couldn't stay very long because my family and I were moving to a new home that weekend. Later that day, he emailed me. He wrote, "Mr. Crossman, thanks for meeting with me. You said you're moving this weekend. Do you need any help?" I thought, wow, this kid's impressive. That was Whitaker. I declined his move-in offer, but I went on to hire him, and he enjoyed an extremely successful career. But what I saw in him in those first moments was a young man who was asking me for something, but at the same time was trying like crazy to give me something in return. And he did so in a completely genuine way. Needless to say, he left a great first impression. And obviously, we talk a lot about mentorship on the show, and the idea that mentorship is a two-way street has probably come up on a variety of occasions. And I think that's a great example, right? You might not be able to help them run their business yet. You might have a lot to learn before you can really add value in a sophisticated way, but there's other ways to add value. What can you do? What can you help with, right? Find something you can do that justifies this mentor, this prospective mentor, spending time with you. What a great story. So if you go to thesaleslab.org, go to the recommended readings and scroll down, you will find John's book, Career Killers, Career Builders, available there, linked. Click on it, pick it up. Portion of the purchase will go to help promote and produce additional episodes of the Sales Lab. So we appreciate that. And really, I think we just need to get this book in the hands of anybody, especially college kids about to graduate or early career sales professionals. Thanks. Check it out and enjoy today's episode. Hey, everybody. Thanks for tuning into the Sales Lab. Today is part 2 of our 3-part series with Anna Ostrowski from Henry Schein Dental. I like the title of this episode. We're calling it Genuine Curiosity is a Superpower, which is actually a line that Anna said in the prior episode, but we talk a little bit further about in this episode. She's going to talk to us a little bit about how she never wanted to be a typical salesperson. And in fact, when she started, she didn't really want to have anything to do with sales. We've heard that before. Talk a little bit about some horror stories of her time out in the field. And we'll talk a little bit about saliva ejectors, which, if you're not familiar with dental jargon, well, you'll get to learn some new terms in this episode. Just want to remind you that if you are listening to the podcast on any platform that you like, iTunes or in Google Podcast or wherever, check us out on YouTube as well. Make sure you're liking and subscribing on all the platforms we're on. If you're our Facebook friend, join us on LinkedIn and vice versa. Thanks again. Hope you get something out of it. Listen, I am trying to get every guest that comes on here to tell me something funny that happened, or something horrible that happened, or I got Mark Kramer to tell me about someone else who got locked in a bathroom, not even about him, And I'm thinking, like people have to have some pretty great stories. So come on, regale us, I think that's the right word, with a dramatic, hilarious, horrific story from the field.
So the first one that comes to mind, and there's multiple, let's be real. I mean, I should have kept a notebook of some of these things. The first one that comes to mind is I was at an event. One of my oral surgeons had this fantastic event where they invited a bunch of their different general practices that give them referrals to this like big fiesta. And I went, and of course, when I'm there, I'm going to talk to all these other general dentists and see if they have a supply rep, because if not, hey, I'll be your girl. And so I went around table to table and I thought I was all smooth starting out in sales. And I sat down at one of the tables and I was like, hi guys, I'm Anna. I work for Henry Schein. How's it going? Blah, blah, blah. And then I did the whole pitch of I'm not your typical sales rep. Like I want to get to know you. Like I'm not going to push a product on you guys. My job is to understand what your challenges are, ask you questions. And then if it's a good fit and Henry Schein has resources for you, I would love to talk about moving forward. But I respect if you're working with someone else and I respect your time, but at least give me the opportunity to learn a little bit more about your practice. And so I do this whole spiel, right, about how I'm not this typical rep, blah, blah, blah. I swear to you, one of the girls at the table, she looks at me and she goes, oh, I know who you are. You said the same thing in our office last week. And I was like, oh, no. I was like, oh, wow. Well, I feel like a fool. And everything inside of me just dropped. And I was like, okay, I literally said out loud, I was like, and just when I said I wasn't a typical sales rep, now I sound like a typical sales rep. And it was horrible.
But did you actually say that to them?
Yes.
Yeah. Okay. Good.
Yeah.
That's a good way to recover, I'd imagine.
I said that out loud. I was like, great. Like, but here's the thing. And this is another piece of advice that I give everyone. You have to write down every single detail when you're making a phone call or a sales call, all the way down to the color of the hair, the color of their glasses, how tall you think they are, everything. Because after she said that, I recognized who she was. And I was like, wait, I remember us talking. I'm like, your daughter and her boyfriend just went on a hiking trip to Colorado. And she was like, yeah. And I'm like, and you're not too sure if you think this boyfriend's a good fit for her. And she was like, yes. And so I ended up recovering from it, right? Because I had this whole personal talk about her daughter. And I ended up recovering from it and it went okay. But I have never felt like, even talking about it right now, my face is probably red. I've never felt more embarrassed because I'm like, that I just told them I wasn't a typical sales rep. And then sure shit, I'm a typical sales rep by saying the same thing I literally just said to you last week. So that's the first story that comes to my mind. And it was uncomfortable. And then when they were leaving, I was like, oh, bye, see you later. Like so awkward.
Well, I mean, that sounds awkward, but not horrible, not
really?
terrifying.
You don't think that one's that bad? Oh, I thought that was bad.
See, I'm waiting. I'm holding out for like the real dark stuff, like somebody parked their car on a hill and didn't engage the emergency brake and, halfway through then I
definitely disappointed you.
the pitch of, why life insurance is a good idea. They look up out of the living room window of their prospects and see their car pinballing down the road off of everybody else parked on the street. Something fun.
Well, when you get that, call me because I got to hear about that. Oh my gosh.
Or the locked in the bathroom was a pretty good one. I mean, yours is good because it's interesting because sometimes these very subtle things can be very impactful.
Yeah.
Right. So somebody, third party looking in on that situation would probably say, oh, well, that's fine. And you recovered and what's the big deal? And it's like, yeah, but for me being there and just, the combination of the point I was trying to make and the words I was using and the fact that this person,
just awkward.
Sometimes those subtle things are maybe more memorable than the big dramatic things.
I feel like I'm going to hang up from this and I'm going to call you and be like, oh, I just thought of a really good one.
Yeah, I thought about the tie. I just remembered that my car did go ricocheting down the road.
No way.
Yeah, no. No.
Yeah, I'm going to call you and say that. I'll just make something up now.
I should include that in the introductory email.
Just come up with this great story.
Just lying through your teeth for the sake of my amusement. That'd be great.
I mean, I have something kind of gross.
Hey, that sounds good.
So I was, this is why you need to ask your dentist questions before you let them do anything. So I was in a dental practice and I went into their sterilization area. And do you know what saliva ejectors are? The little plastic things where they put it in your mouth and it sucks out all the spit?
Yeah, the little vacuum. Okay, yeah.
Right. Okay, so those are disposable, okay? So you're supposed to use them after you're done with each patient. And also prophy angles where you put, the different goop and goo and stuff all on your patient's teeth. You can get a bag of those for, not that much. And there's like 200 in there. We even have some that have like 500. And so it's not this expensive item. I swear to you, she had all of her prophy angles and her saliva ejectors in cold sterile. She was sterilizing them and reusing them on each patient. And I was like, this is a joke, right? And I talked to, so one of her teammates, I pulled one of her teammates aside and I was like, you know, these are disposable, right? And she was like, oh yeah, we know. Doctor won't let us throw them away. And I was like, okay, I'm done. I'm out of here. So question for you guys when talking to your dentist, make sure that they're disposing the proper products. But that was a gross one for me. And I was like, you know what? I cannot work with someone like that who is so cheap that they're not even willing to follow OSHA regulations and throw away damn saliva ejector. So that also, you know, when you run into situations like that, it definitely helps you identify the type of customer you're dealing with. She was an A customer who I thought was going to be a really great opportunity and immediately went to a C customer. Then I'm like, nope, not going to happen. So.
And is that how you rank opportunities? A, B, C?
That's how I personally do. So we're not given a whole lot of direction in terms of ranking your customers, mostly because when you start out at Henry Schein, I tell some of our new reps point blank, you kind of get the shit list. You get the list of offices that all of our other reps have tried working with and haven't been successful. And so you have to take that, and we have awesome platforms where you can pull data and figure out, you know, how much they've spent and yada, yada. And so I did not go out in the field for my first 2 weeks because I spent that time categorizing my customers based on the data that we had in our systems and then also based on what their website and reviews looked like. So if they didn't buy a lot from Henry Schein, but I went on their website and it was really, really good, bunch of operatories, 3 different doctors, 200 Google reviews, I'm like, okay, that's an A customer. Like there's a lot of opportunity in there. So between those two things, that's how I personally categorize them.
Okay. And then what is the difference between like an A and a B and a B and a C?
An A for me was someone where it was like, you're going to see them once a week. It doesn't matter how many times you get rejected, like your butt is going in there because that merchandise account is going to be more than $60,000 a year. Like that is a great opportunity for you. A B account. And also I took a look at the competitors as well. So if they were working with another full service distributor like Henry Schein, then they understood the value in what I was able to provide. If they were working with an online Darby, Safco, not valid people, then I'm like, okay, probably not an A customer because they're not going to see my value right away. It's going to take a little bit longer and I'll work towards it, but maybe they're more of like an A minus, B plus. And then my B customers were people who probably like a $30,000 merchandise account, and I would try to see them once every 2 weeks. And they were people who not as big of an opportunity, but definitely possibility, and C were the people where it's like, if I'm able to get to them on my run, then I'll get to them because there's potential there, but they're definitely the bottom of the list where I'll stop by if I have the opportunity to.
Okay. And do you feel like, because sometimes people have a hard time kind of assigning those types of labels, right? Like I don't want to think of somebody as a C and then find out that they just didn't know how to be an A or something, right? I mean, it seems like I think salespeople get particularly maybe paranoid or neurotic about this, right? Because they see it as a opportunity, maybe leaving the table, right? So what benefit do you get from this? I mean, what happens when you're right? What happens when you're wrong in the way you classify them? What makes it okay that it's an imperfect science?
No, that's a good question. And that is the nice thing about Schein and also having a mentor within Schein is they're able to look at some of that data with you and say, okay, this is where I'd kind of put them. But when you're right, it's great because you spent that time, you put in the effort, you made yourself visible to this customer over and over and over again. So it pays off. You did your research. And again, it's showing up. Like a lot of sales is showing up. And so you show up, you put in the time, they see you, they understand that you're genuine in your ask to set up this meeting, and great. Your A account was an A account, and now you're in the process of discovering. and learning more about how you can be of value to them. Now, I've definitely had it, for example, with the saliva ejector and prophy angle story, where I thought that was an A customer. She was one of my first meetings that I ever had. And I did my meeting with her. It was my first solo meeting. At the end of it, I did like the optional close where I gave her a bunch of different steps or a bunch of different options that we could do. Like I felt like I rocked it. And then come to find out, I go in there and she has all this stuff. She has the prophy angles, saliva ejectors, and the sterilization. And she takes a look at some of the different quotes that I spent hours putting together because I took who she was ordering from and converted it over to Schein codes and Schein prices. I mean, that takes hours. Mm-hmm. And nope, too expensive because that's where she found value, was inexpensive. And could that have been her just seeing that? For sure. Could it also have been me not explaining where my value is? Absolutely. So it could be a combination of both. But I remember I walked out kicking myself saying, I spent so much time. I spent so much time doing that when I could have been working on another customer who saw my value.
Any other account.
Yeah. Right. Exactly. But I will say, did it suck? Absolutely. Did I learn a lot from it? Hell yeah. And so that was kind of my silver lining in it, where it's like, I all of a sudden became really good at converting stuff because I had done it so long for her. So try to find a little bit of the positive in it because it's going to happen.
Yeah. Anytime there's uncertainty, right? I mean, I don't know who's going to buy, but I have to try to behave strategically and probabilistically and, not just work hard, but try to work smart as well. But, working smart, it seems inevitably involves some assumptions, right? You're going to have to assume that the heuristics you're using to classify these opportunities are valid. You're going to have to assume that focusing on one is a worthwhile trade-off that you're, given that you're going to be ignoring the others.
Yeah, I would say definitely there does have to be a lot of assumptions, but use your resources. I mean, there are so many people, mostly with a company like Henry Schein. I mean, someone on my team has been into this office at some point. And so I sent my list out to other reps and I sat down with my mentor and other reps that have been doing this for a while. And I'm like, hey, here's my list. Like, they offered too. They're like, let me take a look at your list. Maybe I can give you insight into some of these offices. So that helped. The internet and looking these accounts up helped a lot. And then utilizing, we have a platform called Dashboard where I spent a lot of time pulling up how much did they spend in 2019? What did they spend their money on? And so assume you absolutely have to, but definitely don't underestimate the power of the resources that you have internally and externally.
Yeah, for sure. I was curious. So you are from Wisconsin. I think La Crosse is where you went.
Yes. Yep.
Okay. And now you're in Dallas?
Yes.
Tell me about that transition. So I'm guessing, I know I believe La Crosse has a sales program, right?
It actually does not.
That's interesting because all of those Wisconsin schools seem to have programs,
They're getting there. So La Crosse is now starting to get one, but I actually took one sales class and I got my degree in marketing and did not want anything to do with sales.
Sounds about right.
Yep. That's what I talked to a lot of students about as well, mostly the ones who are in marketing.
Why? Why did you not want to go into sales?
Oh, for the stupidest reason, which everyone thinks, is that it's like the typical car salesman. And there's nothing wrong with car salesmen. Those guys and gals work their butts off. But I'm just saying it's like that pressure feeling and wanting to, like, very cutthroat. That was my other fear, is like, okay, I'm alone on this island where all my team members are trying to take my sales. Like, do I have a team? Like, does it work like that? And if I don't hit my numbers, am I going to get fired? Am I just pressuring people, or am I going to hear no all day? Are people going to hate me? Like, that's what came to my mind when I thought about sales. And that was it. I did not think about any of the great positive things about it until I had an opportunity to actually sit down with a couple different companies and talk to their sales reps and figure out what their world actually looked like.
No, that makes a lot of sense to me. So what opportunities were you looking at when you graduated?
We did have a sales team where we competed in one competition, but again, it was Great Northwoods in Eau Claire. And again, we only took one sales class, and then this group of, I think it was 5 of us, we would get together once a week. And then it started to be a little bit more once we got closer to the competition, and we would just do role plays and we would kind of just run with it. And we had a phenomenal coach, my professor, Stacy Trissler, and she did so great leading us and finding research for us and spending all of these hours with us. And so we ended up going to Great North Woods. And I knew that I always wanted to do something in healthcare. I always just had, when you think healthcare, you think of taking care of people, right? And my dad had knee surgery, my grandpa had surgery, and it was like, I just wanted to take care of them. So I'm like, I want to do something in healthcare. It was just something that I felt a passion towards. And so when we got to Great North Woods, there were all these companies around, and I saw Henry Schein. And so I looked them up and I was like, okay, holy cow, this is like the coolest company I've never heard of before. And I wanted to be on the medical side because we have a medical and we have a dental. And
that's right.
Medical sales sounds way sexier than dental sales. So I'm like, medical sounds so cool. Like, I want to do that. But at the career fair, it was the dental division that was there. So I ended up sitting down with them and I asked them a couple different things about what sales looks like for them. If the people that were there were sales reps, you know, your typical questions I asked them. And I ended up getting an interview and went through an interview in Wisconsin via Skype. And it was the scariest interview I have ever done before. I thought it was me and one other person. And all of a sudden it opened up and it was a boardroom of 8 people. This is my first like big girl job interview. And I was like, oh my gosh, like who are all these people? And they're firing off questions at me. I had to pretend to be a sales rep for them. I mean, this whole thing. I'm like, okay, well, that was kind of fun though. Then I was like, I don't want to stay here though. That's the thing. I've always wanted to go somewhere where it's warmer for more than 3 months out of the year. And so lucky for me, I hit it off with them in Wisconsin that they actually called the people in Dallas to interview me. And so I did an interview then with 2 different phone interviews with the people in Dallas. And the zone manager here in Dallas, I actually, and I've told him this, I actually cried after my interview with him. People are going to think I'm the biggest crybaby ever. You can be emotional and still be in sales, but you do get thick skin. But I actually cried after my interview with the zone manager because he shot me straight. He was like, here's the thing, Anna, like it is going to be really hard on some days. And there's going to be times where you're not going to be good right away. I mean, you're going to have to fail. And I was like, oh my gosh, I don't know if we can do this. And I thought about it. And he even told me, he was like, do some soul searching. Well, they ended up calling me and offering me the position. And I asked to see all the information before accepting. And I called my dad and I was like, what do I do? I'm like, I don't know. Like it still has that sales title in it. I don't know if that's what I want to do. Like, I still feel like I'm going to be that pushy person. And he was like, Anna, it's a great company and it's a great offer. You go for it. And so I started and I moved down to Dallas. I graduated from college, moved to Dallas 2 weeks after I graduated, got my own little apartment, and I started 2 weeks later, moved down 1 week and then started the following week. And my perception of what I thought sales was changed within that first week. Easily. And a big part of it was because of the people on my team. Like I had so many people reaching out and offering help and explaining that we are a team. Now I will tell you, not every sales company is like that. But I did listen, like I know Qualtrics, you had them on, and Qualtrics is a wonderful company. There's a lot of great companies where even though you are a sales rep, you still have a team. And I would say for people who maybe are a little bit more like Anna and will cry in a CVS parking lot, that's probably a good thing to look for when you're starting your sales career is, do you have a team of people that you can rely on where you're not necessarily competing against each other, but you're able to share resources with each other? And so that helped me tremendously when I first started. And then also going on some of those different co-travels that I went on and shadowing doctors and just building up my own brand and taking what I saw other people doing it and molding it into what I wanted my sales position to be was huge. Like the sales rep that I thought I was going to have to be was this person in my imagination. When I actually saw, I mean, what Chris Violet does versus Chris Bevenue versus all these other people that I have, they all do sales a little bit different. And so I took the things that I liked about them and I molded it into Anna as a sales rep.
And so what were you afraid you were going to have to be? Paint that picture.
oh my gosh, walking in, interrupting people's day, bothering them and calling them and nagging them and having to just beg over and over again and keep getting no, no, no. And this is what it is, really. This is the picture. When I was worried that when I was walking up to a dental practice, they were going to quick turn the sign to close and pretend that they were on lunch. That was like my biggest fear, is like, oh crap, Anna's coming. Like, she's coming to bother us again. She's coming to ask about this again. Like, crap, close. We're not open, or we're too busy, or no one stand up here. Lock the door. That was my biggest fear. And I can tell you that never happened. But I will say, I also point blank told people that I didn't want to be like that. That was part of the conversation that I had with them, is I'm like, hey guys, in order for me to be a sales rep that walks in and you're like, yes, Anna's here, I know she has something good for us, rather than, oh shit, Anna's here, lock the front door. I have to understand you better. And the only way that I can do that is by sitting down with the assistant, the doctor, whoever, and learning a little bit more about what's going on in your practice and see if Schein is a good fit with any of those. Otherwise, I'm just coming in here and I'm interrupting your day and I'm bothering you with crap that you might not even need. And so I actually used that fear to my advantage when explaining the kind of rep that I wanted to be.
Yeah. I mean, certainly in a company like Henry Schein and a number of other, what I would think of as more conscientious type of sales organizations, that's going to be pretty well received, I think, because those people understand that. They, like, I don't want to be the dude that is, the poison that, nobody wants in their office or something. I can't live. I can deal with some failure in my professional life, but I don't want to be a pariah everywhere I go.
And that also comes down to emotional intelligence, I will say. It's a big part of it. Is understanding when you hit that point where you are starting to seem like a pariah.
When you're starting to frustrate the people.
Yeah.
And then, so how have you avoided that?
Avoided feeling like I was driving them nuts?
Avoided that perception that that you're becoming the salesperson you didn't want to become.
By challenging myself, by setting aside that time, by running into the fire. And most importantly, I said it earlier, genuine curiosity is truly a superpower. Like if I go in there and I'm talking about Anna, Schein, which is why it's like kind of uncomfortable on this interview or this podcast, because I'm not used to talking about myself so dang much. Like I want to ask you a bunch of questions because genuine curiosity truly will get you so far. If you walk in there and you are curious about how their day is, what's on their to-do list, how you can help them, what's going on in their world, if they feel safe in their workspace, I promise you're not going to be a typical sales rep. And I will tell you, when I left the field to move into more of this corporate position, I went and I said goodbye to some of my accounts that I turned into Henry Schein customers. And I had multiple people who told me, you were the only rep that ever came in here and would ask to see pictures of, like our grandkids. Like if they told me, I'm like, what are you doing this weekend? I have my grandson's birthday party and we're doing all these fireworks. Like, you got to write that down. I mean, my notes after these offices, you would die if you saw them. They're hilarious. Like I took notes on everything. So then that way, the next time I went in there, I was like, hey, I remember you told me you had your grandson's birthday or your daughter had a volleyball tournament this week or whatever it was. And so many of them said, you were like the only rep that ever asked us that stuff. And so awesome. For some people, maybe that's not their style, but I will say asking like two simple, personal, genuine, curious questions, no one else is really doing that because they're just trying to, some of them, I shouldn't say a lot, some of them are just trying to get to the doctor and get that sale. But I will tell you, if you become friends with the people at the front and the gatekeepers, as we call them, that's going to get you very far. And so that was my thing that I always did, is I always tried to leave with something quote unquote tangible. And when I say tangible, I don't mean literally tangible. I mean having something that I know about their office on a professional level, but also having something that I now learned about them on a personal level. So then that way I can come back and I can speak to those things.
We're going to stop it right there for now. Please dive into the next episode of the Sales Lab to hear the conclusion of this interview. By the way, if you like what you've heard so far, be sure to subscribe and rate the podcast on whatever app you use to listen. Also, share this with your colleagues and friends, and let's continue to have a deeper discussion on all things related to selling and sales leadership. See you next time in the Sales Lab.